What is up, boys? Welcome back. It's me, random internet person. Hope you guys are doing pretty good. It has been a minute, and we're back in the channel map doing some more warbird action, which has really been pretty much all I'm doing recently. I mean, other than flying and stuff in real life. When I'm playing DCS, it's been the warbirds, which I think are just a super ton of fun. Um, P-51 I just got. It is probably, obviously the F-14 I've said a bunch of times is my favorite airplane. If this isn't tied, it's number 2. It is up there. Really interesting airplane, particularly the late models, which we're looking at now. This is the D, and we'll talk about some of that stuff in a bit. Probably want to get it started and get it warming up, and then we'll talk about some of the interesting characteristics of the P-51 that I think make it such a special airplane. Into the cockpit, and also if you guys have been watching the channel or the stream for a while, you know, started doing a lot of P-51 stuff when we were still in X-plane, so it's cool to have this in the in DCS as well. Hold the parking brake. Toe brakes on. Come on now. Come on now. There we go. Mags on. So you're supposed to start on the left tank, which gives you a little bit of extra weight in the right tank when we take off, which will reduce some of our torque roll. I'm not going to do that because we have a full fuselage tank as well, so I'm just going to start it on that tank and we can climb out on that, and then we'll deal with the weight discrepancies in air. I don't really have too much of a problem controlling it on the takeoff roll or anything. So we got it primed. Fuel pump is on. We're on the fuselage tank. Both mags are on. Fuel booster is on, and our primer we have done. So let's see if we can start this thing. First try, baby. And we'll go ahead and kill the fuel booster. Altimeter 29902. Also good to be back in an American airplane that uses old inches of mercury, so I kind of know what's going on. Because the only thing that I know about millibars is that 2992 is 1013. This is also the magnetic compass, which is weird to me because normally you have acceleration, deceleration, and turn errors that make it wobbly. But this, in this version and in the one from X-plane, really stable. So we're actually going to set the DG from this. So we're at about 76. And I mean, we're all used to these kinds of directional gyros anyway, so it's harder for me to use this for directional stuff because I have to visualize in my head that heading. Because obviously, if we want to turn 090, we know we have to go right. But on the directional gyro down here, obviously 090 is on the left. It's weird. So we'll let that warm up, and we'll talk about some of the cool things with the Mustang. Number 1, let's get these flaps going now. We have hydraulic pressure. Sure, you guys have heard about laminar flow, and I'm not an expert on that stuff, but basically the idea is smooth airflow at the boundary layer of the wing. And if you look at the airfoil, the P-51's unique because what a lot of other airplanes at the time were doing is a traditional airfoil where the leading edge is kind of bulbous, and then obviously the trailing edge it tapers off, and the largest, I guess, the biggest portion of thickness was towards the front of the wing. And that's like traditional airflow or airfoil. And for this one, the largest or the biggest mass of thickness was almost halfway down the wing. And the idea was that airflow and a normal airflow or airfoil would kind of separate towards the first third, maybe the first 30%, so you get smooth airflow over the front, and then where it separates you start to get jetties and stuff over the rear. And for this one, airflow stayed relatively consistent to the halfway point of the wing, which reduced a lot of induced drag, which is drag that you create as a product of generating lift. The good thing was that it generally worked. I mean, it's obviously a pretty fast airplane, and you can see one of the other design philosophies that was done along with that laminar flow is all these flush rivets. There's not a lot of probes and tubes and little bolts and stuff, but did they achieve, you know, an actual laminar flow? Probably not, because I mean it's a military airplane, so you still got, you know, access ports, fuel caps, and you've got you know, little vents and stuff for your ejected shell casings. But I mean, it was an interesting philosophy at the time. It made it kind of hard to fly at lower speeds too, because obviously if we separate that airflow early, it's not going to be quite as efficient. So this Just like a lot of other airplanes that don't use fly-by-wire or any sort of stability augmentation, you get accelerated stalls, and it's hard to fly. You'll get, just like the F-14, even though that has a stability augmentation system, you guys that are familiar with flying it, you know that it rolls when you're in those turns. An accelerated stall is just a stall that occurs at, you know, a relatively, what you would consider a safe airspeed in normal flight. And we'll definitely see some of that today. It's hard to fly in general, and that's something that I never really got from X-Plane because we never really dogfought an X-Plane, you know what I mean? Even though you could shoot the guns, none of the collisions or the impact stuff was modeled, so don't really get any of that. The other cool thing is the radiator down here, which is pretty bulbous. You know, so with the Spitfires, the radiators were mounted on the bottom of both wings, and this one is kind of interesting because you've got your oil cooler down in the bottom portion. The radiator is towards the top, kind of inside the fuselage or empennage. And when we get flying, you'll see this flap open on the bottom. And the cool thing is that the cool ram air coming in through the front gets compressed on the radiator and intercooler. And when it comes out the back, it's heated and it's moving at a relatively higher airspeed than when it came in. So it actually produces a little bit of thrust that compensates for the amount of drag that the radiator actually makes on the airplane. So I mean, it's a super sleek thing, and even though you would think that this bulbous intake down here on the bottom of the plane would probably be a drag penalty, it's not nearly as much as it was with a lot of other airplanes at the time. The big problem that I have with it, and that it has probably historically in general, is that the main benefits and where it's going to outperform all of its, you know, Axis counterparts is at altitudes above 25,000 feet, where you actually get access to the power from your supercharger. There's a BF-109 somewhere off the coast right now that's probably at 6 or 7,000 feet, so we're not going to get any of that benefit. And in fact, at low altitudes, he's probably going to outturn us or outrate us. So one of the things that you have to do, and this will also decrease the plane's inclination towards accelerated stalls, is use maneuver flaps. And you can see down here we've got some flap restrictions. We're really generous. So 10 degrees, we can go at 400 miles an hour, which you're probably not going to be at 400 miles an hour through most of your dogfight, right? So anytime that you're turning, we're going to use at least 10 degrees of flap. That's going to make sure that we're not getting in an accelerated stall, and it's going to give us a better turn rate. And up to 275 or below 275, we can use flaps 20. So again, I mean, that's more drag, it's more induced drag while we're turning. So when you're straight and level, we want to clean that up and get as much energy as we can back. And then when we're turning or trying to rate, it's going to be flaps, which is, it's a lot to take care of, or it's a lot to sort of control mentally while you're doing this and trying to control the airplane and manage your engine settings and temperatures and all that kind of stuff. But it's not too bad because you can see the radiator coolant and the air controls. We can keep those in automatic. We don't have to worry about that at least. And once we get into a dogfight, we'll just go props full fine, 3,000 RPMs, and you get up to 61 inches of manifold pressure. There is a war emergency power, which I think gives you up to 67, but if we're there for more than 10 or 15 minutes, it's going to burn up the engine, which has happened a time or two. So we'll see how well we get on with this little fight here. We're going to take off and go find this guy. By the time that we taxi to the runway, hopefully we'll be good. So I'm going to go ahead and take off the park and brake. Just click the toe brakes there. Get it up to about 21 inches of manifold pressure, and it should start to taxi. Also, mercifully easy to taxi on the ground compared to the Spitfire. Do a little run up when we get here too. Just super nerding out today. I've said it a million times too. If you guys, you're not into warbirds, it's a lot to get used to. But I mean, being able to really feel what an airplane is doing, and I mean, it's going to make you better at flying everything else. To me, flying the F-18, I've said this before. I think the F-18 is it's a well-modeled, it's a good module, but I think it's really boring to fly. I am not too much of a fan. That might annoy some of you guys, but truth hurts. Turn off these. I don't know, for whatever reason, these lights do not need to be on when we start. A little bit of nose down attitude for takeoff, and I'll put in a little bit of right rudder just to compensate once we get rolling, but it's really not too bad. I think it's a little bit harder to take off the Spitfire than this guy. We've got the parking brake, we'll put that on, and we'll bring it up to 30 inches of manifold pressure, and we'll just do some tests here. We're going to do a mag test, see if we get any drop in pressure or RPMs. Alright, so we get a little drop in RPMs. The only thing that I'd be looking for, I mean, I don't know about a warbird like this that has tons of horsepower, but less than 175 drop in RPM. Let's go right. It's good that that's actually modeled in this versus the Spitfire. Didn't notice any drop in RPM. Now I'm just going to exercise the prop control. I'm going to go all the way back fast and all the way forward, and I'm going to expect to see a rise in manifold pressure and a drop in RPM. So we'll go 1. And it worked. And 2. And we're going to do it one more time. I'm looking at oil pressure, and we should see a little rise in oil pressure too. And it didn't actually do anything. Everything's in the green, everything's stable, looking good, feeling good, so we'll take that back, take the parking brake off. Flight controls. Free and correct. Let's go, 30 inches of manifold pressure again. Let it start rolling. And we'll inch it up to 61. Just flew itself off the ground. Inches. So in a plane like this with a constant speed prop, where we're taking care of the prop pitch, if we want to reduce power, we're always going to adjust the manifold pressure first, and then we'll go back to 2,700 RPMs. So now you can see that port at the back of the radiator is open now. So it's actually expelling hot air, which is producing a little bit of thrust. Not enough to actually propel us in the air or anything, but it's just enough to compensate for a little bit of the drag that's being produced by the actual radiator structure on the bottom. Which is neat. So I'm going to compensate for some of this rudder we put in here. I want to climb out here to the east a bit, get some altitude, and then we're going to look for the BF-109, hopefully from the top, because I'd like to have some altitude when we spot them. Adjust our range. I think the point of convergence for the guns was 1,100 meters, and we know that the BF-109's wingspan is about 32 feet, so I'll put that in there, and we can turn on our gun sight. And I always set it to the fixed sight, which is the circle, as well as the gyro, just like in the P-47. So you get a little bit of gyroscopic effect so you can see how much you need to lead the target. 500 now, so we're about to be probably co-altitude with that BF-109. He's somewhere out here over the channel, but like I said, I want to get on top of him, which is going to make things a little bit easier when we come into the fight with a higher energy state than he does, or than he has. I was really frustrated when I first started flying this too, in fighting with the BF-109s, because I expected, you know, having one of my favorite airplanes that had a pretty stellar history in World War II in air-to-air engagements. I expected it to be a little bit better, but it's really the altitude. I mean, at 25,000 feet, like I said, you're going to get that benefit. I mean, we can turn the supercharger on manually now, but you're going to destroy the engine at this altitude. You're not going to last long in a fight, particularly if there's more than one. See a group of bombers in front of us. If we have ammo afterwards, we'll come back and get them. But primary focus right now is this BF-109, who is somewhere down here now to our west. Again, the higher that you go, the less pressure that you get outside, so your manifold pressure decreases, and we can start to inch the throttle forward. A little right rudder to compensate for that torque and P factor. The model, like the Spitfire, is dated too, but I don't even care because it feels good to fly and it sounds good. They really did a good job with the Warbird sound. I mean, DCS in general has done a pretty good job with all the aircraft sounds, but in particular the props are good. Alright, we're at 10,000, so we've at least got a couple thousand feet on, so I'm going to hold it here and we'll start tracking to the west a little bit and see if we can find him. Trying to keep us at 46 inches of pressure. I don't play with the little labels on either, so it's always kind of a pain in the butt to spot these guys, but it just feels like it's immersion breaking to use the labels. I like to kind of feel like what it, I mean, the bad thing is that the AI spots you no matter what if you're within a certain angle of their nose, but, you know, it is what it is. It'll be interesting to see how the new clouds, if the new clouds change any of that, because that's the other bad thing is if they're behind a cloud, you can't see them, but the AI can still see you, obviously. The other cool thing, speaking of sound, too, they did an amazing job with like that P-51 scream, and I think it comes from the radiator. I don't know exactly, but that was one of the things that it was known for in high AOA, or in like a sharp turn, high rate or something. It would just, it screams, which sounds awesome. Another bad thing about the P-51 is where the fuel gauges are ergonomically. So the main fuselage, each tank has its own fuel gauge. So left tank is down here below your seat, right tank is over here, and then the fuselage tank is actually behind you. You gotta look through this little hole. Hopefully we're not gonna have to deal with that once we get into this fight. If we get into a fight, if I can find them. picked up our friendly ground troops at the airport that we took off from. He might have tracked inland a little bit. Move it this way and see if we can find him. I know he's closer to the English coast than he is the French coast. Get a little rudder trim here. Go. The other problem now is that if he's below us, which he almost certainly is, it's going to be harder to spot him because he's below the relative horizon. But I don't want to give up the altitude advantage that I have because, like I said, he's going to outrate us, outclimb, and outdive us at this altitude. Some inadvertent IMC. If he got too close to the airfield that we took off from, I put some defensive weapons there. He might have gotten shot down. I can respawn him. No one's dead, so. Airfield. The other good thing about this airplane, which I should turn on, it's got a rearward facing radar. So if someone pops up behind you on your 6, that little light right there will illuminate and it will give you a bell warning, which is pretty helpful. But it doesn't differentiate between friendly and adversary. We're flying overhead one airfield right now. I don't think that's the one that we took off from. I think it's further to the east here. See if he's sneaking around somewhere in this area. He's somewhere off the coast. Know that. Make sure we're staying at about 10,000. And it looks like he was heading back to the west. 125 miles an hour. That's indicated airspeed, so probably true airspeed close to 400 or something, which is insane. Oh boy, here we go. Somewhere down here at 1 o'clock. Oh, I think he's in that cloud right there. I got him. Let's go. Props full. Fine. Staying on top of him here. Don't know if he's seen us yet. Oh, yeah, he's coming towards us. Don't shoot, don't shoot, don't shoot. And flaps 10. Don't black out. Don't shoot. And now we're in a rate fight, which I did not want to do. Still got the flaps in. And I think it missed. Don't black out. Lost him. Oh shit. Now we're in a low energy state too. You can see it's starting to shudder now. I still got those flaps in. We haven't stopped turning. And if he goes up top, I'm going to clean up the flaps. Alright. And flaps back out. Oh, she's rolling. There's an accelerated stall. Come on, baby. Give me some energy here. Right, I'm not going to go back over the top with him. See, really, I mean, at these altitudes, we are at the disadvantage here. Got the nose back on me, I think. Oh, no, there's a way. I'm not going to be able to get the nose up on him. Flaps back out. See if I can get 20 turn. My flaps 20 now. Flaps 10. Starting to get an accelerated stall. Clean up the flaps on the way down just to get some airspeed. That's an accelerated stall. Flaps 10. Come on, buddy. I don't know how damaged he is, but got some good hits there. Alright, cleaning the flaps back up. Full power, giving me as much energy as I can get here. It looks like he might be running away now. Alright, we're gaining on him. He's definitely running. We're going to go back to flaps 10. flaps 20 because we're actually slow. A little wake turbulence. Some more hits. How are you still alive, bud? The other bad thing is, I mean, we just got 650 cals. I mean, we don't even have the armament that the P-47 does. He's got, I think it's a 20 millimeter, which will poke some holes. We've basically got to get a lucky hit on him. Whoa, okay. Bring the nose up so I don't overshoot him here. He might be terminally wounded, and I'm going to turn that alarm off, please. Thanks. Come on, don't crash. See what he does. I'm going to stay up here for a minute. I think he just bailed out. Canopy came off. Is he still flying the thing? Maybe he's just gonna ditch it. There he goes. Do pass and see if we can see him. I don't know what happened there. That was kind of cool. Flaps 10. So that's basically how a dogfight goes in the P-51. When you've got the nose down and you're picking up speed, or you can, clean up as much as you can. Get as much of that energy back, and then when you're turning, you have to use the flaps. I mean, you can see it too. It rolls like the F-14 does. You just get accelerated stalls really quickly. Pretty much anything below 200, about 200, yeah, 200, around the 250 ballpark, will cause an accelerated roll and a high angle of attack. Let's go back. We still got some ammo left, so let's see if we can take out a couple of these bombers. 46 inches. Get some climb propeller. Man, really, next time there's a free-to-play weekend, I really encourage you to try some Warbirds if you haven't, because it's just, I mean, they're so much more fun to me to fly, at least the flying aspect of it, not the weapons implementation, than all the other airplanes in DCS. I mean, even the ones without stability augmentation, we can still put the autopilot on. They still largely fly themselves. It frees you up to use the weapons and everything, which is really fun, but I mean, just as a flying experience, the Warbirds, they're where it's at, in my humble opinion. And if you got friends, you can dogfight with them, that's always a good time. Way back when we get a little bit of speed, we'll see if I can do some turns and passes so you can hear that scream that I was talking about too. At one point I was in a high rate turn and you can kind of hear it, but from the external cameras it sounds a lot different than it does in the cockpit. So now we're looking for a 4-ship of Ju-88s that should be somewhere orbiting around in a racetrack pattern at about 10,000, I think. The hardest part almost certainly with the warbirds is actually getting your nose where you want it to be during a fight, because I mean there's small rudder inputs, even with the curves that I have set up. I mean they have a pretty extreme response on the airplane, so trying to maintain your coordination in a turn while you're trying to get your nose pointed in a way where you can actually get guns on that's the hard part, but it's also really rewarding when you score even just a couple hits, you know what I mean? This one, the P-51 versus the Spitfire, actually has aileron trim, which is nice because it allows you to fly actually hands-off. We're getting up to their altitude now. I don't want to go too far to the south. Then we get some flak from the French coast. Got him. How are we doing on fuel? I'll wait a few minutes. Hopefully I remember, and then we'll switch over to the left tank. Probably make sure our fuel booster is on. That should have been on during the whole fight. So if they're coming or going. Also feels like, I mean, there's a big discrepancy between armaments with the Spitfire and the P-51, because I mean, generally speaking, 50 caliber obviously is better than the 303s, but the Spitfire has 20 millimeters. However, we carry more ammunition, it feels like, than the Spitfire does, so I don't know. The 50 cal, sometimes it doesn't feel like they're doing much unless you get a direct engine shot or you kill the pilot. Like they might be in a left-hand turn here, coming back towards us. Pass a beam, I'll start a left turn and try to slot in behind them here. I don't know if you guys can see them or not on the stream or with the artifacting. We're right in front of the canopy right now. Now right above it. In fact, while I'm thinking of it, I'm just going to go ahead and switch this over to the left main so I don't get preoccupied and end up running out of fuel. right there. That was that scream that I was talking about. Lost him. Probably either in or on the other side of these clouds, maybe. They go. Worst pilot ever. They should be a little bit above us, so they should be easier to spot. They would be above the relative horizon, but I don't see anything. Oh, there they are. So I think these guys are set to weapons hold because, just for target practice basically, but they will light you up if you're now probably at this angle or anywhere directly behind them. So I guess probably the best way to do this is either a head-on attack or from directly above or below. Requires a little bit of coordination. It'd be fun to do with multiple people, but I mean, really don't have any other friends that fly warbirds, unfortunately. Nerds? Tell which one is the rear. I'm guessing him. Take some sniper shots here. Couple hits, there we go. Go for the engines. Go. If I was this close, I'd be dead from that tail gunner right now. There we go, that's what we're trying to do. Get that engine. That was close. And I am Winchester. That is all of our ammo. Just follow him for a little while and see if he gives up. There they go. Bye. We got 2 bombers and a BF-109. That's pretty decent. RTB here. What those flashes are, I'm sure you guys can see that on the stream. That's something that only happens on this map for some reason. We are way out here. Let's turn it back this way. terms of landing. This also feels mercifully easy to land compared to the Spitfire as well too. Part of that I think is the ground handling and the taxi characteristics in general, that the Spitfire is real hard to handle on the ground. Flashes are really annoying me today. .50-mile-an-hour paddle brake. What's up, boys? Canopy, let's go props full fine and get us over to the right tank. Fuel pumps on. Looking for 170 for gear. 170 gear, flaps 10, flaps 20. Trim, 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 trim. Wow, we're way out here. We'll start turning in. We're looking for 120 until the threshold, basically. There's flaps 40. Oh, we overshot it. I missed what I was looking for here. And we'll just throw in that last bit of flaps. Flaps 50. Low. And a little fast. 120. Runway's made. Idle. Flaps up, aerodynamic braking, and a little bit of toe brake action. Freaking easy. Just keep some speed in here. We'll go ahead and taxi over here because I know there's some B-17s we're going to park near because it's cool. unlock the tail wheel. We should be able to spin this around pretty good with some differential braking. Gisanyo! There we go. Parking brake set. So we can turn that fuel pump off. Let's do a live check and see if this works. Drop an RPM. It does. Bam, we did it. Boys, that was super fun. Like I said, next time there's a free-to-play weekend, I would expect there to be a sale probably by the end of the month, and usually when they do that, they have free-to-play stuff. Check out some Warbird action. I think the best one in terms of visual fidelity is the P-47. I like that a lot. It looks good and sounds good and feels good. It's hard to fly, but still, like I said earlier, the P-51 is, if not tied for first, is definitely number 2 on my all-time favorite airplanes, and it's super fun. It's a challenge to fly like all the other ones. Um, yeah, check it out, guys. And if you're interested, I'll put this mission, which is, it's a free flight scenario. You can respawn the 109 and the Ju-88s when you kill them indefinitely forever using the F10 menu. Do need the channel map and the World War II assets pack, but if you got those, I'll put the mission in the Discord. Guys, Gisa, we love you. 안녕. 다음 시간에 봐요. Everybody else, see you next time. Peace.